Everyone, 6 o'clock, we'll get started. Member Chapman sends her regrets. Confirmation of the agenda.
That council confirms the agenda of the meeting of October 1st, 2025.
Can we have a mover and a seconder, please? Member DeRose, Member Oslach. Further discussion? All those in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Member Barber.
In accordance, thank you. In accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, I, William Barber, have a pecuniary interest with respect to 6.2.1, 6.2.2, 6.3.1 regarding fire fleet management and the operation budget, specifically the sections related to Elmer Fire Department. I therefore declare a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof as follows. I am further a volunteer firefighter for the Elmer Fire Department. I do therefore agree not to take part in the discussion of or vote on any question in respect to the matter and shall not attempt in any way, whether before, during, or after the meeting, to influence the voting on any such question.
Delegations. There are no Finance Committee delegations. Item number 5 regarding the minutes of the previous Finance Committee meeting.
That the committee adopts the minutes, noting no errors or omissions.
May we have a mover and a seconder, please? Member Barber, Member Rahi. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Item number 6, action items. There are no correspondence or updated items. 6.2, staff reports. Councilor Barber, or Member Barber, you're leaving at the moment. 6.2.1, Director of Emergency Services, Elmer Fire Department Replacement Report 2025. Chief McCone.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of the Finance Committee. The reports that you have seen in your package from the CEO and myself kind of summarize the replacement schedule for the fire trucks following the procurement policies and replacement policies of the town. I'll just kind of summarize real quick to refresh everybody what was in those reports. So as you are aware, as I was requested to prepare a report and kind of a roadmap to replacing our fire and emergency apparatus. Our Rescue 6 is the first due replacement vehicle and the most pressing at this time. In the report in front of you from the staff, we created a plan that you will find requirement in the fire department where possibly we can replace this vehicle while generating some savings for the town. With the County of Elgin's recent grant funds to provide a free firefighter decontamination trailer for use by all Elgin County municipal fire departments, the Town of Elmer Fire Department cannot take advantage of this offer as the Elmer Fire Department does not have an emergency vehicle capable of towing this decon trailer at this time. Additionally, the fire department has no emergency vehicle capable of towing the shared county fire safety house, nor the fire department's own fully loaded foam trailer safely. The plan listed in your report indicates the purchase of an economical, smaller rescue with the capabilities of towing all trailers safely. Also allows for the purchase of a used, possibly electric or hybrid, support vehicle for fire department use to replace the current pickup truck, which is also due for replacement. The estimated cost of these purchases is approximately $335,000 as compared to replacing the current rescue with the same like-kind rescue truck at approximately $550,000 to $750,000, plus the additional cost of a pickup truck that would be required to tow the heavy loads that we have seen. For the obvious dollar saving, staff will request council to consider option 3 provided in your truck replacement report package when the time comes to purchase a rescue truck. As far as replacing ladder 5, your aerial truck, staff recommend that council carry on with the necessary repairs to keep the aerial truck in good working service at this time, as the market for replacement of aerial devices is unhinged with high prices on both new and used apparatus at all-time heights. The ladder truck is in good shape and will serve the community well till it's time to be replaced in its scheduled 3 to 5 years. And hopefully the market is more stable and reasonable at that time. I hope you found this information package informative, and I can answer any questions that you may have for me at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Do you want to read?
That the Elmer Fire Department Truck Replacement Report 2025 be received for information.
Mover and a seconder, please. Member DeRosa and Member Rahi. Further discussion. Member DeRosa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question through you to staff. You mentioned about the possibility of an electric vehicle. Can staff explain their thought process behind that as a option? Thank you.
Great question, Councillor. As we are still in the early stages of looking at vehicles, that is as an option that would be brought in front of council, either an electric or a hybrid vehicle. Try to be a little green, follow some of the, one of our goals in the community was environment stewardship. So we would look at that when the time comes and see if there is a vehicle out there. The real idea is to find a more economic way to get rid of some of these vehicles that need safety checks and certifications every year. And with the purchase of a possible SUV that was green, we don't need to get it certified every year. It becomes a vehicle that just gets used within the department, and hopefully a little bit cheaper maintenance is the theory behind that. But we are still steps away from that process.
Member Rahi?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of a question, I guess. Is there any logistical problems I like the idea of like what you guys come up with. It's pretty crafty and I think it does make good sense, but is there any ever, like, does it always make sense? Like if that truck is on scene already and then you have to go get a trailer, does that screw anything up? Or like, I think it makes good sense, maintenance-wise and drivability. You don't have to have your Z license or Z endorsement. Getting around town way easier. Four-wheel drive would be better in the wintertime. Not that sometimes we do get winter, but so I do think it makes sense. But I just didn't know, like, I don't know what I don't, but is there ever a time where that truck could be out and then you have to go get the trailer, and is that going to pose an issue at that time?
Great question through the chair. Generally upon dispatch, we are aware of what equipment and trailers we need. With our foam trailer, we would know, and the smaller rescue would be designed to pull that. It would probably sit in the station with that truck. I really try to find solutions to problems where a vehicle isn't designated to just one role within the fire department. We try to look at a vehicle and we try to make it fill several roles. The downsized rescue could pull our trailers, do public events with the other trailer while still having our other equipment in service to serve the community. And it just makes a little bit more sense with the price of larger rescue units at this time. I think it's absurd, the price of fire equipment right now. And that being said, I have to give councils, past and present, pats on the back for replacing their 2 pumps when they did, because they saved an astronomical amount of money, and that was really great thinking on their behalf. So I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Regarding 6.2.1, are there any further questions? We have a mover and a seconder to receive the report. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. 6.2.2,
That report, CAO 39-25, Fire Fleet Management, be received for information.
and a mover and a seconder, please. Member Cookett, and seconder, Member DeRosa. Chief, are you doing this one as well, or Andy?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report is really just before you for information purposes. I think it's fair to say that we're all invested in ensuring fire gets where they need to be. And no one's contesting that there needs to be significant investment. What's proposed in the 2026 budget is for us to really to develop a plan for 2027. So this will be a priority for the next term of council. Funding challenges are not unique in this area to Elmer. All sorts of Canadian municipalities are having these issues. Elmer is perhaps unique in that we're looking to replace 5 vehicles within an 8 to 10 year period, which is a lot of financial pressure. We're in a situation where our reserves are kind of bottoming out in 2026, and we have additional pressures that we need to address to avoid impacts to service levels, such as the repairs to the outdoor pool. So it's really limits council to deciding what you can or can't do, and we try to avoid putting council in a position where your only decision-making is to put an additional burden on what's an already challenging budget levy. But certainly don't envy council, as ultimately you're the holders of the purse strings, and these are the decisions you want to make. But we wanted to start outlining this issue and outlining the need for a plan and for investment by council now, so that it doesn't become a surprise at any point. We really need to work on a plan and get this done so that we can continue to have the high quality of public safety and effectiveness of the fire department that we've come to enjoy and that the chief has been delivering. So with that, myself or Heather or the chief can answer any questions.
Thanks, Andy. Do any members of the committee have any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. 6.3, public hearing and associated staff report. The Finance Committee has given notice of this public meeting that will consider a draft version of the operating budget, the water and wastewater rates for 2026, and the capital budget. Members of the public in attendance and members of council will have the opportunity to speak to these items if they wish. The committee will receive input in the following order. Number 1, presentation of the staff report by the Director of Financial Services. Number 2, the public. Number 3, members of council. Heather?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you want to start with fire while Member Barber's out of the room?
Yes, that would be appropriate.
So I'll start there, and then we can bring him back, and then we'll carry on. So fire services rolls up into protection services. Currently, right now, the labor impact, which was the 4% salary increase for volunteers and for staff, has been offset by retiree benefits ceasing. Excuse me. We had one of our retirees fall off. Also, in this budget, you'll see that there's a savings in phones. Owen's team has been switching us all over into the voice over internet phone, so there was some savings there. And we've also added additional user fees for projected for fire for 2026. So that's overall the changes for the fire service.
Thank you. Members of the committee, questions? And I skipped over the public component because there are no members of the public present. Member Barber can return then.
I just have a quick resolution here.
Okay.
That report, Finance 17-25, respecting the preliminary 2026 operating budget with respect to the fire department, be received as information.
Mover and seconder, please. Member Oslach, Member Rahi. All those in favor? That motion is carried. The Director of Financial Services will now present the preliminary 2026 operating budget. Heather?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you and to members of the committee, this is the mayor's budget for 2026 that staff had prepared. Hoping this represents the worst-case scenario with the assumptions we have included for each department. The preliminary operating budget document that you have in front of you this evening shows an estimated levy increase of 9.56% in 2026. We're still waiting for funding, so no additional assumption has been made for that, and some rates such as WSIB. So this tax levy increase does not equate to the tax rate impact yet because we're still waiting for MPAC assessment to be finalized for 2026. So just wanted to start off by saying that the police and EECC budgets have intentionally been excluded from this presentation until they're presented to their respective boards. Before we dive into each department, you'll see a common theme here in IT, software, hardware costs. Historically, in the last 5 years, they've been paid for by COVID funding or modernization funding. So when all this technology was purchased through these funds, it was not on the levy. The replacement of these values now moves to the levy. So that said, though, Owen's department has done an incredible job with the savings in the new phone system and cell phones. So, and also utilizing in-house expertise for IT. So this will help offset some of the costs that we're seeing in the technology increases. He's negotiated a reduction in costs in our cell phone contracts, and Michelle's been running around switching everybody over, basically all the phone systems in all departments and in the cell phone areas. So town hall operations, fire, parks can now run on that system. In addition, his team also has implemented a new work order system for IT services. So typically we open tickets, or Michelle or Owen would open the ticket. This helps with mitigating some of the external costs in our IT services. So it's allowed for internal expertise to troubleshoot a lot of the stuff that the external IT contracts used to do. So I'm going to start now with GenGov. So this includes council honorarium, 4% increase, 4% salary increase for staff, decrease in retirement benefits costs, because a lot of these retirees that had negotiated benefits are now turning 65. We're no longer offering that for staff, so that was a change in HR policy in the last 2 years. Decrease in phones costs of $6,500, decrease in cell phones of just over $1,000. Increased in insurance assumptions due to the capital investments. So every year when we do the insurance property analysis, we have to include all of the new property that we've replaced, and that is determined to increase based on the insurance broker. So that drives additional cost in property. Increased in annual maintenance contracts, hardware, software, assumptions of around $50,000 a year due to the software that we use and the current hardware that I mentioned being replaced. This will smooth out over the next 5 years. Changes on the revenue side for GenGov are revenues in marriage ceremonies. We have that in-house officiant. We have several of us now that can generate revenue for the marriage licenses. We also have a contribution in GenGov for $33,000, which allows the election for 2026 to be a net impact of zero on the levy based on the money that we've put away for the last 4 years. Next, for planning and economic development, the changes on the expense side include restructuring and rebucketing of the labor and headcount with the retirement of the Director of Operations, Rob. Terry's now wearing both hats in infrastructure and operations. So we've also onboarded Adrian as a project technologist, which specializes in helping Terry with executing some of these development duties. So a portion of those salaries are paid for through planning and development. Additional training expense for this department, with Heather managing the department. We added $2,000. This was offset by $1,000 in savings in cell phones. High-level points for operations. So operations includes environmental services, So I'll wait for Michelle to get to that point. So staff have been notified that the tipping fee increases, but also the additional stops with the developments. So 3% has been assumed over the next year on the collection side. Upon review of the year-over-year budget, the incremental increase also is apparent in the usage of the St. Thomas Recycling Depot. So over 2024 actuals was actually an additional $30,000, or total $30,000 was prorated. So we've increased that by 7% in this area, which will increase that astronomically for council's benefit to almost 50% increase. The good thing is people are actually using the depot and we're not just paying for it for no reason. I'll also remind council that the previous approved direction is the town still pays for some of the businesses to have the recycling picked up, which is around $15,000 a year. So if we move to transportation, so again, with the restructuring of the labor in that department, retirement of the director of operations, and onboarding Adrian, there's a salary increase of 4%. We also had some incremental licenses for some of these operators, which are driving increases in this area. We had a property insurance increase. Again, the cost of assumptions from the additional investment drives a higher rate. The decrease in telephone costs and the increase in hardware and software causes 3.76% in transportation services. On the revenue side, we can adjust for a $4,000 increase in parking fines. That's due to the fact that the police service are also able to issue more tickets, and Owen's been able to resolve the issues that we had with the parking fines. I'll move on to water next, which is a net impact of 0 on the levy, but there was several minor changes in water with the full cost recovery of the water meters. We have so many developments that we're now budgeting for the water meter purchases. That's also a net impact of 0 because we recover those costs. The investment in the new water tower has driven a property insurance increase, and the billed water revenues are offsetting purchases from the primary water supply, or from the water supply. And the debt we expect to be still at $6.7 million with the commissioning of the water tower happening already. It doesn't appear that we're going to need the extra $1 million that we had forecasted in the Infrastructure Ontario loan that we had opened up back in 2023. All of this is paid for by the user rates. I just wanted to note all those changes because they do roll up on the total. So sewer and wastewater. So there's several minor changes in this department also. There's SCADA expense increase. So as the SCADA comes online, those items need to be replaced. We'll have additional repairs and maintenance. The property tax for the lagoons and insurance also has been increased incrementally. Thankfully, we didn't have to reforecast any cost of debt issuance since we received the HUSIF grant funding. So there's a small increase in hydro and contracted services for the lagoons. But this is also paid for by the sewer rates, which doesn't affect the levy. All of these changes we're looking to implement or include in the 2026-2027 water rate study. So Parks and Recreation should be next. So on the expense side, again, the labor increase for 2026, the council had previously approved, increase in insurance cost assumptions as mentioned. Incremental cost of $10,000 has been included for the Parks and Recreation software for the operating costs and the technology improvements for 2026. The largest change in this department, which we've included for awareness, is the $73,000 incremental contribution to the YWCA. And that's based on those discussions that we had at the beginning of the summer with the YWCA. We still don't have their final bill yet posted. We'll have that probably in the next month and a half, and it'll give us a better idea of how much we should be forecasting in this area. But I've included hopefully the worst case scenario on that side. The next is protection services, so I'm going to exclude the fire discussion because we've already had it, but protection services includes building, 911 dispatch, County of Elgin POA, building and bylaw enforcement, and animal control. So the only things to note were relatively minor for the building department, were the additional building permit fees of $25,000. So even though a lot of the areas around us are forecasting, requiring funds from their reserves to fund their building department, we're fortunate with the planning and development that's happening right now that we've forecasted an increase of around $25,000 for 2026. Additionally, we also included the trap and neuter release program from the mayor's budget for a $12,000 impact. So the retirement benefits that are ceasing in this area rolling up into the labor and the phone savings have really, made this a net impact of 0 on the levy for 2026. I'm going to move on to agencies and other boards. So the other boards is really Catfish Creek, so I don't have that number yet. They've probably mentioned it in the last couple weeks, but at the time of the writing this report, I just included a 10% impact. If it's more than that, it will directly affect the levy. The grants and donations also, we kept at $53,400, but the reversal of the $15,000, which was the contribution from reserves that council had required to, or used to require to fund the grants and donations from last year, has reversed. So when you're looking at the overall roll-up on the next page, you'll see an additional contribution of $93.50, which is youth subsidy. So the youth are using the arena more. We're forecasting more youth subsidy that the town of Elmer's portion has to pay. But the transfer from to and from our own funds, which is the $15,000, is your sponsorship that you had accounted for last year is now back to 0 again. So if council wishes to, sponsor some of those grants and donations when they come up for discussion, they're able to do that again through this line. So to close, I just wanted to thank the public. This budget survey is always vital to determining where resources are needed and redeployed to be. Also, additional analysis comes with the comments that come through, each department, and all of our department staff or departmental heads look at this individually, but also collectively. And I wanted to thank everybody who also attended the town hall with the mayor and deputy mayor, because some of those comments could be included from the mayor that we could speak to in this presentation. So we have the entire management team here, so any questions the committee may have, we can answer them.
Thanks, Heather. Does the committee have any questions? Okay. With no further discussion, the committee will now consider the following resolution. Owen, can you read the recommended resolution, please?
That report finance 17-25 respecting the preliminary 2026 operating budget be received as information, and that the finance committee acknowledge the proposed preliminary 2026 operating budget as presented, and that the finance committee direct staff to present the final version of the 2026 operating budget for review and adoption at a future meeting of council.
Thank you. A mover and a seconder, please. Member Oslach, Member Barber. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. 6.3.2, the Director of Financial Services, could you provide us a brief summary of the 2026 water and wastewater rates, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the members of the committee. The water and wastewater rates for 2026 are simply restated from the water and wastewater study that council had approved in December of 2021. So links to the studies were completed by Watson, and they've been included in the report. So this is a yearly exercise that requires council approval to update the rates, and with your approval, the change becomes effective January 1st, 2026. We're hoping that all of the inputs with all the grant funding with Hughes and with the ICIP for the water tower, all those will feed into the next water and wastewater study. I don't anticipate any substantial changes because we were successful in those grant funds. But this report is specifically just stating the rates for 2026.
Thanks, Heather. Does the committee have any questions on that report? Okay, with no further discussion, the committee will now considering the following resolution. Owen?
That report finance 18-25 respecting the water and wastewater rates 2026 be received for information, and that the committee acknowledge and approve the 2020, the water and wastewater rates for 2026 as presented by Watson and Associates in 2021.
Thanks, Owen. Mover and a seconder? Member Cookett, Member Rahi? All those in favor? And that motion is carried. 6.3.3, capital budget. The capital budget, 2026 capital budget was presented at the last meeting of the Finance Committee. If any members of the public are here and would like to speak, this is your opportunity. Seeing that there are no members of the public, we'll move on. And Owen.
That public input received on the 2026 capital and discretionary budget be received for information.
And to members of this committee, a mover and a seconder, please. Member Rahi, Member DeRosier, discussion? Member Barber?
Through you, Chair, do you want me to step out because we have the fire section in this as well? No, we're good.
Consensus is no. It's a broader aspect than the individual. Okay. Thank you for the question anyway. Did we have a mover and a seconder? Yes, we did. All those in favor? Oh, Member DeRosier, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. At our last finance meeting, the committee discussed the possibility of potential provincial grant funding for the large outdoor pool capital expense. And if I believe I have it correct, CAO Grizel gave direction that there wasn't a great possibility of us applying for that and being able to fulfill the work prior to the next season, which was a big factor in, you know, our decision kind of to not consider grant funding. And since that meeting, there have been, you know, members of the public that have reached out to me about that concern specifically. And the consensus that I was getting from everyone that had reached out to me was that even if it meant holding off on the work and potentially having the pool closed for the next term, or for the next, season, that if there's potential funding out there that's going to offset the tax impact, the levy impact, that it was worth exploring. So I guess, like, I have a notice of, like, our motion drafted. Is that the appropriate way to table that discussion, or what's the direction from the chair on that?
Would be my opinion that perhaps at this particular time, Andy or Heather, can you give an update on potential funding of the pool repairs?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think there generally is it would be a tight window to get the pool repairs done. Obviously, if the repairs aren't done, as we know, it was out of commission for the last week or so of this season. But ultimately, it's up to committee or council to determine whether or not they will direct that we don't do the work. It's your budget, I would say. So if you do decide to remove the item or direct us only to proceed after we pursue grant opportunities, that's up to council. It would just be that I think our initial plan would be either way, we would plan to not have the pool open for next year.
Member DeRosa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Procedural follow-up. So, again, because there's not a notice of motion portion of this agenda, so I have a motion that covers basically what I'm seeking. Do I deliver it now, gain a seconder, and then do we discuss it now? Or like a notice of motion, does it come up at the next finance meeting? Like, can I get some procedural clarification?
Owen?
Yes. So this item does bring the capital budget in its entirety before council, so if you wanted to bring the motion forward right now, it would be appropriate.
Okay. Can I do that? Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Whereas the town has identified a 2026 capital project to replace the old pool liner and undertake related pool upgrades at an estimated cost of $805,000. And whereas early discussions with the Ministry of Sport and Recreation suggest that another round of provincial funding is projected to be announced in January 2026, with this project potentially eligible for such funding. And whereas any opportunity to secure significant external funding should be considered to offset costs to residents and reduce the impact on the municipal tax levy. And whereas proceeding with the project prior to the announcement of provincial funding would eliminate the opportunity to apply or secure such funding. Therefore, be it resolved that the Finance Committee recommend to Council that the 2026 outdoor pool liner and pool upgrade project be prioritized for application under the anticipated provincial grant program, and that staff be directed to prepare a draft of a grant application in anticipation of the program's launch, including letters of endorsement from relevant community partners and stakeholders, including but not limited to Malahide Township, Bayham Township, Central Elgin, Elgin Anti-Drowning Coalition, YWCA, RIP Currents, Elmer Business Improvement Area, Elmer Chamber of Commerce, Elmer and Malahide Museum, and that council defer final consideration of the timing of this project implementation until after the provincial funding announcement is made in January 2026, at which point a further decision may be made with respect to delaying or proceeding with a project based on funding outcomes, and that a copy of this motion be circulated to the above-listed stakeholders as well as MPP Robert Flack for their information and consideration.
May I paraphrase your motion?
Oh, yeah, feel free.
As I understand it, you're requesting that grant applications be applied for, and if successful, we would endeavor to make the pool repairs. Would that be basically correct?
Close. I would just also add that the biggest point of this is that we hold off on proceeding with any of that capital work, at least until January, when it's potentially going to be announced, and then council can make a decision at that point whether or not we want to proceed, or whether if there's applicable funding, that we apply for it. And if we do, at that point, I think that's when we solicit those letters of endorsement from those organizations.
I understand most of that. It's normal practice not to proceed until a grant is approved, or you lose the opportunity to
Okay.
To receive the funding. So it still applies.
Okay, just making sure we're good.
Owen, do you have any concerns?
Would have the option at this time to either directly consider the motion, or they could defer it to a future meeting. It would have a similar effect as a notice of motion, just depending on council's comfort level.
So do we need a seconder first and then consider it, or how does this work procedurally?
Yes, you require a seconder.
Okay,
So this is a regular motion, not a notice of motion.
okay, thank you.
Would that be correct?
Yes, I'm just learning here as I'm going, so thank you.
Okay, hearing that. Councilor Oslach, or Member Oslach, seconded it. Further discussion from the members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Mr. Page. Just to make sure we're all on the same page. The capital and discretionary budget be received for information, which we had a mover and a seconder, I believe. No? Okay, a mover and a seconder, please. Member Rahi, Member DeRossier. Further discussion? All those in favor? And that motion is carried. There is no new business or any inquiries by members. Okay. We'll call for an adjournment then. Moved by Member Barber, Member Rahi, and that we adjourn at 6:40. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to the regular council meeting of Wednesday, October the 1st. Start with the moment of reflection and respect. Thank you. I wanted to mention, because this person has meant a lot to me in terms of my teaching career, I guess. Jane Goodall died today. So anyway, she was a marvelous woman. And going to confirmation of agenda.
That council adopts the agenda for the meeting of October 1st, 2025 as amended with the following additions. 5.1.1, Cynthia Grant delegating regarding heritage preservation of the historic town square. 5.1.2, Steve Blankenship delegating regarding heritage preservation. 5.1.3, Michael Knight from Cherry Street delegating regarding 50 Center Street. 5.2.1, communication from Cynthia Grant regarding council's role in cultural preservation being moved from the consent agenda to be item 5.2. Correspondence related to the delegations, 5.2.2, a staff memo regarding the Center Street property on the Ontario Heritage Act, and 8.1 being the notice of motion having some updates.
Thank you for that. Mover and seconder, Councillor Rahi and Councillor Barber. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We will, first of all, declaration of pecuniary interest. Any declarations? Seeing none, we will begin the delegations at 7 o'clock as posted, so we will move to the consent agenda resolution.
That the October 1st, 2025 consent agenda be received for information, that the included recommendations within the staff report be adopted, and that council approves the minutes of the regular held council meeting on September 17th, 2025.
Seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber and Councillor DeRosier. Any discussion on any of those? Seeing none, all those in favor? Yes, carried. Thank you. Go to 7 action items, 7.1, Manager of Planning. We have a resolution.
That report plan 17-25 respecting comment period proposed updates to population projections be received for information, and that council makes comments on the proposed methodology update as outlined in the report plan 17-25.
Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber, Councillor Rahi. I think, Andy, you're doing this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll provide a brief summary, and if I'll ask Heather James to jump in if I've missed over any important points. This report addresses the comment period for changes to the population projection methodology. My gut feeling is that this initiative is that the province has likely good intentions in advancing this change, but hasn't considered all the potential impacts. Ministry of Finance population projections are being updated more frequently, so this could be an attempt to try to get smaller municipalities that aren't planning for growth to be more proactive. There are some challenges, though, with giving some preeminence to one form of counting population. From Elmer's perspective, we feel the estimates with input on planned developments is beneficial and more accurate. Data mining as well that can be done by consultants also paints a better picture. There's also a challenge in having population determined at the upper tier or county level rather than at the lower tier. So doing so could result in different levels of municipal government taking different positions on growth projections, and ultimately any additional back and forth that's required between two levels of government isn't going to streamline or expedite growth or planning in Elmer. Elmer is likely a unique standout in being a small municipality that's undertaken a lot of due diligence and forward thinking in terms of planning and growth. So the proposed changes in methodology may not have fully considered that there are lower tier municipalities that are actually best served by preserving the local existing autonomy to develop accurate estimates, which I would suggest Elmer is. And with that, I'll ask Heather James if she's got anything that I've missed.
Thank you, Andy. No, actually, no. Andy did a very good job in covering that. It's really important that these comments get submitted to the ministry. It's very pertinent right now with what we're going through with the boundary adjustments. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution, and that is carried. Thank you. Item 7.2.
Yes, the resolution reads that the council of the town of Elmer receive report Plan 18-25 regarding application for consent to sever number E53 be received, and that the application for consent to sever number E53-25 relating to the property legally described as part of Lot 81, concession south of Talbot Road and municipally known as 448 Talbot Street West be supported in principle and the recommended conditions for reasons set out in this report, and that this report be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for its review and consideration.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Barber and Deputy Mayor Barber. Heather.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. The severance application that is before you is what we call a severance for a lot addition. We're severing land off of 448 Talbot Street West, and I'd like to just jump right to the property. So that's the property right there, 448 Talbot Street West. It has a place of worship on the property currently. That is currently still active. What's happening, and if we may just jump to figure 2, we're severing a portion of the property. So we're severing kind of the southern half of the property. So it's an L-shaped parcel. I've outlined it in yellow. So that is the parcel in question that is being severed from the place of worship property. And then it's going to be added to the property outlined in green. You can kind of see my arrows right there. And that is the property known as 215 South Street West, also known as Meadow Lodge. This lot addition will provide access to Calvary Road to facilitate a lot addition for a lot severance for a high-density residential use, in particular a 3-story affordable housing apartment building that is proposed. And it's called Meadow Lodge Phase 2 is what it's being referred to as. So this is just kind of a part 1. You'll see that there's 2 severance applications. These 2 are interconnected. This is severance application number 1. So we're severing land off to add on to the Meadow Lodge lands to facilitate the next severance, which I'll discuss once I finish this severance discussion. Moving on to planning policy review, this proposed severance is consistent with the provincial policy statement in terms of the County of Elgin official plan. Elgin County now has a newly approved county official plan, so we are working with the new policies. This proposed severance application conforms to the county's plan. Moving on to the Town of Elmer official plan, the lands are currently designated low-density residential. An official plan amendment is required to redesignate these lands for what their intended use are, which is a high-density residential use, more specifically the affordable housing apartment building. So therefore, this proposed application for severance will conform to the town's official plans once the official plan amendment is in effect. Lastly, moving on to the town's zoning bylaw, the current zoning on the property is institutional. So just the lands that are going to be severed will be rezoned from institutional to residential multiple second density zone special provision to again permit what is the intended use. The balance of the lands, which has the place of worship, will continue to be zoned institutional. Moving on, as I mentioned, there's going to be a need for an official plan amendment as well as a zoning bylaw amendment to permit the intended use. The owner has applied for these applications and are waiting for the severance process to be completed. So in conclusion, planning staff have reviewed the application in terms of against all the applicable policies, and it's our recommendation that council offers support in principle for the application to the Land Division Committee, subject to the conditions listed in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We'll go to 7.3, Manager Planning and Development Resolution.
That the council of the town of Elmer receive report Plan 19-25 regarding planning evaluation report, application for consent to sever number E53 be received, and that the application for consent to sever number E53-25 related to the property legally described as part of Lot 81 concession south of Talbot Road and municipally known as 215 South Street West be supported in principle with the recommended conditions for the reasons set out in this report, and that this report be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for its review and consideration.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Oslach and Councilor Barber. Heather.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moving on to what I call the second severance in this application, this severance process. So if we may just jump right to the drawings again, I think it's best to look at the pictures. So right now, what we're looking at is 215 South Street West. So moving on to figure 2. So what's happening is we're severing off a portion of 215 South Street West. So that's that grass area north of the existing Meadow Lodge building. That is going to be severed off of the property. And it's going to be, as I discussed in the previous severance, there's going to be a parcel of land added to it. And it's going to become its own standalone parcel that will have the proposed 3-story affordable apartment building. Okay, yep, okay, we can move on. So moving on to planning policy review, the proposed severance application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. In terms of the Elgin County official plan, the proposed severance conforms to the county's plan. Moving on to the town of Elmer's official plan, the lands are currently designated medium-density residential. The lands are required to be redesignated to high-density residential in order to permit the apartment story proposal. It's important to note that objectives of the town's plan is to promote intensification and redevelopment of vacant and underutilized properties, and this is a great example of that policy. Moving on, this area, this severance is appropriate for the lands as it will allow for high-density residential use in the form of a low-rise apartment building that will be for affordable housing. There is a variety of housing types in this area, and the development will be supported with full municipal services and access from not only Caverly Road, but also South Street West. So therefore, this proposed severance will conform to the town's official plan, subject to the official plan amendment coming into effect. Moving on to the town's zoning bylaw, the lands are zoned residential multiple second density zone. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to add a special provision to that zone to permit the intended use. Moving on, as I mentioned, there's already been an application filed for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment with the town to redesignate and rezone the properties for the intended use. So in conclusion, the application has been reviewed against all the applicable policies, and it is planning staff's opinion that council offers support in principle for the applications to Land Division Committee, subject to the conditions listed in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Council? No questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution, and that is carried. Thank you. It is now after 7 o'clock, so we return back to item 5, delegations and public meetings. We have a number of delegations this evening. I'd like to point out that one of the listed delegations, Mr. Michael Knight has indicated that he will not speak. However, I may call upon him to answer questions if there's need arises for that. I'd also like to start off the delegations with the admonition that it's always nice to see members of the public here, and especially in delegations, but I'm not going to tolerate any kind of inappropriate language or any kind of comments while people are speaking, and that includes both, of course, council and members of the audience. So please, no chatting during this kind of procedure and delegations. Right. So let us proceed. We begin with Cynthia Grant.
Thank you. I haven't started yet. So, you'll see that I have a letter to the editor in the paper today, which is similar to what I sent to councillors last week. And today, a memo from staff elaborated on the legality of the demolition order and other aspects related to heritage preservation and the Ontario Heritage Act. The issue tonight is not whether the demolition is legal. Further, I myself quoted the Ontario Heritage Act, which gives municipal councils, quote, the power to identify, protect, and support the ongoing conservation of cultural heritage resources within their municipalities. And that's right at the top of the information provided in the Ontario Heritage Act. Clerk Jaggard has outlined all the barriers to the council serving in that role. It's a handy memo for that reason. Oh, the bureaucracy. Sorry, I'm trying to stay on track here. Maybe I should ad lib. I believe that what is at issue surrounding this project involves the moral fabric of the town of Aylmer. This is about right and wrong decisions, both by a nonprofit called Cherry Street Development and now by the town of Aylmer. For a moment, let's discuss the building. 50 Centre Street is a two-story brick home built in 1873, which reflects the Ontario Gothic revival. Aylmer was booming at the time. Constructed of buff-colored brick, which came from Aylmer's thriving brick-making industry, it features a steeply pitched gabled roof, which has been neglected for a couple of decades, and a full-width porch with a balcony on top, popular in Victorian times. This home stands as a tangible, we can touch it, heritage reminder of Aylmer's late 19th century growth, when merchants, tradespeople, and professionals erected solid brick homes reflecting their prosperity and civic pride. Let me say here that I understand that housing is needed in Aylmer and that affordable housing is vital. I am currently serving on the board of a nonprofit organization, Senior Women's Housing Corporation, as I am committed to working towards more affordable housing. However, efforts to increase housing should not come at a cost to heritage and the destruction of part of our historic square. This is not about whether it is technically and legally allowable, but rather whether the interests of the town will be served. I am calling on and addressing the Cherry Street Board of Directors, including Judy Wright, Mike Knight, Jeff Wybinga, and from the Mennonite Services Community, former Executive Director Abe Harms, who's here tonight, and current Executive Director Anna Bergen. I would ask, have you really intended to let that Center Street property deteriorate in order to profit? Are you serving the interests of the town in degrading our town square? Will you meet with the councilors and discuss compromise that involves retaining that beautiful home, or at least the facade, a testament to the heritage of Aylmer's past? Because of its profound impact on the historic quadrangle and the keen desire of neighbors to be heard, doesn't this project deserve some sober second thought? Our belief is that neighbors and the community at large support housing projects, provided they are done with sensitivity. Heritage properties were a focus for our official Heritage Committee under Ian Cameron and Stephen Douglas, who is here tonight. They understood the process and did a lot of work in the area, but there are also barriers to it, as outlined by Clerk Jaggard. I would ask, does the staff recognize that carte blanche demolition will cause profound damage to the town quad? And therefore, council should have been at least aware of it, which I know they were not. Years ago, the mayor's own wife was handcuffed over her attempt, along with John Houston and Steve Blankenship and others, to preserve a home 1 block away on the corner of Sydenham and John Street. Mayor Habkirk moved quickly to demolish that one. Will Mayor Cookett and Town Council stand up and ask for a meeting with Cherry Street Board of Directors and brainstorm how to retain what is the most valuable characteristic architecturally of our town? I am calling on people to join together to envision a positive outcome. Again, isn't it worth a sober second thought? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Any questions from council? Comments or questions? Councilor Roselach?
Thank you, Cynthia, for your presentation. I was on the Heritage Committee from 2010 to 2018. I remember Keith Hunt and I placing the building on 50 Center Street in Elmer. I was down there this afternoon, and the plaque has been removed. I've got a picture of the plaque removed. I conclude that should be the heritage building for the town of Elmer, 50 Center Street. Should be heritage building for the town of Elmer.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? We have a separate resolution for each presentation.
That the delegation from Cynthia Grant regarding heritage preservation of the historic square area be received for information.
Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber and Councillor DeRosier. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Second item, 5.1.2, Mr. Steve Blankenship.
I think I'll sit. Usually I stand to promote my ideas, but Mayor Jack, councilors, salaried employees that are here tonight, and the gallery, thank you for all being here and accepting our little basically our plea to re-enter maybe the situation here on 50 Center Street. Now, Cynthia has covered many of the ideas that we both share and other people do, but I'm going to go in a little different direction, and I'm just wondering what the whole purpose of this building is going to be, or buildings, if it is not geared to income. Now, I understand it may not be totally geared to income, as we have a lot of buildings being built in town for the use of rentals. And I think it's coming along very well. And the mandate is build, build, build for rental, rental, make affordable housing. Well, that's understandable. And the point is, we also had a great letter from Mr. Hugh McKenzie, who some of us do know from town, a litigation lawyer who has retired in town, and he has made his points clear on the old town hall restoration that should happen. Now, Hugh wrote a really great letter, and Cynthia mentioned a few of the points about landlord-tenant, that he was not able to publish it at the Elmer Express because they were concerned over maybe possibly some possible liabilities, and we understand their situation. Now, he has gone to Europe, Eastern Europe, and has not been back since he left a letter in Cynthia's in my hands, and so we couldn't change anything without him being here. And so that did not go out to the public to see what he basically said about the Landlord-Tenant Act, and basically the council should be a little more aware of what happens to some tenants in town and the buildings that may be not taken care of as well as we think. So that's unfortunate that that letter was not being published, but maybe some councilors got a copy of it somehow, some way. But anyway, a little history lesson here. I'm going to call it 46 Sydenham. I'm not sure if that was the yellow brick that was destroyed when a few of us ended up in jail and court after the fact. But that's the passion we have for these old buildings, and that one is maybe in my neighborhood. It is in my neighborhood, and I'm not worried about the repercussions of my wanting to sell my house at some point in time due to a new building being built in the vicinity. My passion is seeing a building that will never be able to be replaced, ever, duplicated or what, torn down. For what reason? I still don't really have a good vein, and maybe Mr. Knight will be able to help me on that one. But a little more history too. Since I am from the neighborhood, the Durkee home was sold to Cherry Street, as we all know, and I can relate to a story. And Mrs. Durkee, Judy Durkee, who was a very nice woman and a very supporter of the town library, and her husband were, donated a lot of money over the years. But she's standing in her yard one day and she says, "Steve, come here. Will you mind coming over?" And so I was talking to her, and she says, and she's standing up against this great big giant maple tree that's in the lot that was purchased with the Durkee home, which is adjacent to 50 Center Street. And she's leaning up and she says, "Steve, Cherry Street wants to buy this lot. I don't want to ever sell to them. I don't want to see this tree destroyed." So I have a personal, very personal story in this. Now, unfortunately, Judy cannot be here because of some certain health problems that she probably may not remember even saying that due to her dementia. But the point is, it makes a big impression on me at that point to see her almost in tears that day. So to move on again, the founding fathers of, you might say, of Cherry Street Organization were Mr. Gene Daub, Don McKinnon, John Frisch, my father, Abe, I believe, was on the board at one time. I'm not saying they were the original members, but they were members back in the 70s. And I think they'd be a little appalled at what's going on now with the organization, but I cannot speak for them. So that is another personal tie I have to this situation. Maybe we can explore alternatives to this situation. Maybe we could tear down the one house, maybe restore the other one. I remember when Selma's Cottage, as you all remember, out at not Springwater, but Selma's Cottage is on the corner of where Caverly's property is, and it was going to be basically falling into ruins, and the community got together because it's kind of a historic site to some in town. But anyway, to make a long story short, the community got together and restored it. And all the craftsmen, people in town who had, an opportunity to help restore it, and they did. And it went back into the family hold, and it was never raffled off or anything like that. But there's alternatives we can maybe explore, and I'm not sure with the plan in action that this house will survive. Basically, it's just that we cannot let our heritage be ruined by this. Now, we should have learned a lesson on 46 Sydenham, but we didn't, because now situation is coming now. Now, is this building compromised? Is it beyond repair? I don't know. I've never seen a list or a bill or any kind of an account of what it would take to repair it. So I cannot say any more on that. I just want council to take a look, and Cherry Street directors to take actual look at the situation and see if there's something that can be done other than demolition and losing a beautiful home right in the core of downtown Aylmer.
Thank you, Steve. Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we have a resolution.
That the delegation from Steve Blankenship regarding heritage preservation be received for information.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Ozek and Councilor DesRosiers. All those in favor? Yes, carried. Thank you. Okay. As I said, Mr. Knight is here to answer questions. If there are any, there are no questions. Is there anything, Mr. Knight, that you would like to say at all?
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, staff, and gallery. My purpose here this evening is merely to act as an observer to what's transpiring and to act as a resource for council should they have any specific questions. But perhaps by way of introduction, and that might address some of the questions. My name is Michael Knight. I've been a resident here. We moved here in 1968. I've worked for the municipality for 3 decades. I understand what the municipality's needs and likes and opportunities would be. Many of you know me as a retired police officer, but prior to that, I was a secondary school teacher in history. My academic background is in history, so I fully understand the importance of history and heritage, and I do applaud committee members for the Heritage Committee for coming forward with their concerns. We are fully transparent at Cherry Street. We are a nonprofit organization made up of community members, longtime residents. I can give you the complete history going back to 1973. Our focus point is on affordable housing. We're the bricks and mortar to assist any social services that the community and the governments have. This is not a whimsical, last-minute project that we've started. It's been long in the works for many years now. Pieces of the puzzle have been put together. We've followed proper procedures. We have accepted any meaningful dialogues that have come forward and integrated them into the project, which some of the questions came about, have we thought about different things? And yes, we have. But just to conclude, our focus point again is on affordable housing. I'm told that by St. Thomas Housing that there is currently a list of well over 100 people that have requested to move to Aylmer. And we're just trying to accommodate people. And our clientele base for tenancy is extremely wide open. Anything from refugee families to local families that are in need due to financial constraints to seniors. It's pretty wide open, and we've worked with many social services. So our track record is good that way. I'm always willing to engage in open dialogue with any concerned members of the public. Quite frankly, the Heritage Committee have not, to my knowledge, come forward and identify themselves and spoken to us prior to the meeting tonight. We have been working with town staff for a long time now over this. So, we're currently on our 6th revision of for plans, for blueprint plans for the area, the footprint that we're looking at. So that's kind of a quick synopsis on my end, but I'm certainly open to address any questions that council may have right now.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Mr. Knight, one of the comments that was made earlier this evening was the character of the facade. Could you consider incorporating some of that facade design into the conceptual drawings?
Yes, that was an item that was brought up right from the get-go. We've made inquiries from it. We've received feedback from the from the consulting company and the architects that are involved, and these are folks that have worked on projects throughout Southern Ontario and have a great grasp on things. The cost factor would not be in favor based on the fact, for us, based on the fact that we are nonprofit. We don't that's fine. We don't fundraise or anything like that. So everything is cost recovery for us. While we're prepared to look at incorporating the history, the historical charm of our community, it won't be at the disadvantage of potentially losing units of housing. That being said, the short answer is yes, they're already incorporated into it. We have roof-line structures and exterior facades that will blend in nicely with the heritage and historical charm of what we and the architects feel would be applicable and appropriate. I do want to mention as well, there's lots of, I've seen lots of social media comments, and there was an earlier comment about the plaque itself that was brought up. We've already thought about different ideas as well. If the facade couldn't be retained, whether or not there could be a presentation inside where there's a common room, which would be open to members of the public as well, that would perhaps incorporate some of the brickwork and the plaque. I removed the plaque. I salvaged it from a house that's being demolished for the purposes of maintaining it for historical purposes and incorporating it into the next building or wherever, if possible. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Councilor DeRosier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Knight, for coming out tonight and being accessible for not only the public but for council to ask these questions. I truly do appreciate it. While we're on the subject of answering some of the questions from the public, one of the big questions was the why. So from the discussion that we just had and the statements you just made, it looks like there is the possibility of retaining some of the current building, but obviously there's a cost factor. So I think a big question from the public was the why. Like why is it needing demolition or extensive work? So if you could answer that. And then the other question I had was clearly, from what we've heard from the public and even from council here is that there maybe, yes, has been consultation with staff. I don't doubt that. But I don't think, just from hearing the comments tonight, that there has been sufficient public consultation. So my final question would be, hearing these comments tonight, are you or Cherry Street able to put the demolition on a pause to allow for those consultations and those discussions to happen?
Regarding the demolition, in reverse here, so the demolition process, once a permit is issued, then we look towards demolishing the building. The two of the three structures that are currently on the 4 adjoining lots are basically not inhabitable. The one directly across the street, 32, has not been inhabited since, I believe, 2018. We allow the use of the building to the community for the Christmas committee, that they store the decorations there, free of charge. I mean, it's, the other building has long been getting to the point where money's injected to it did not balance the potential outcome of retaining it. So history is great. It also involves evolution, and Mother Nature also begins to reclaim things at a certain point in time. And our focus is not heritage restoration or any type of building restoration. So the issue that we have with putting anything on pause is that part of our funding comes from government seed funding at different levels that you apply for each and every year. We've been accepted for the year coming right now. However, the issue that arises out of that is that there's a very strict time limit with government seed funding, and that if you are not shoveled to ground within a certain period of time frame, then those monies are revoked, that funding is revoked. Things are paused, and it moves on to the future. Those monies are then distributed to other municipalities. So for the demolition purpose right now, we're looking at, because we have been granted that the government seed funding, is to move forward within the time frame. Otherwise, the whole project just pauses, and that defeats the purpose of providing affordable housing. And I'm sorry, if you could go back to the first question for me, please.
Yes, so I will actually kind of piggyback on what you just said. So it was, if the project could be paused to entertain those public consultations, those discussions. From what you just told me, that there's a tight deadline, a tight timeline. That's, I think you're stating that it's preventing that. Please clarify. So I guess my follow-up question would be, you're saying there's a timeline. What is that timeline then? And so I can understand, and maybe council can understand why there is maybe not an opportunity to entertain those discussions.
Those discussions have always been there. We've been fully transparent from day one. We even approached different neighbors, including Mr. Blankenship, who here. We've asked for any questions, concerns, anything along that line, and have taken those questions and concerns into account. So those have been ongoing. There's nothing secretive here. It's, but to pause it at this point in time would mean the probability, not the possibility, but the probability of the loss of the provincial seed funding. So the timeline, I don't recall what it is off of the top of my head, but I believe it was 120 days, but don't hold me to that, something to that effect. I could have that.
One more question.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, are you complete? Because I'll wait if you're not
I
done.
think so.
I didn't want to interrupt. So from what I'm hearing, that 120 days is definitely sufficient time to enter into at least some discussions. Like if you, just to be clear, I never suggested that you were being secretive. So it's just that in order to have understanding, a mutual understanding from, multiple individuals, there needs to be that collaboration, there needs to be that communication. So all I think personally is that from hearing the concerns that have been communicated is that maybe there was discussions, but clearly there isn't the understanding component. So if we have 120 days to enter into this demolition, I think prioritizing a discussion, another consultation with the individuals who have expressed concerns would be beneficial, especially for the Cherry Street organization. So my final question is, can Cherry Street commit to entering into those communications to hopefully foster a better understanding within our community?
Simply, yes. I mean, we've always been, as I said, transparent. We're always open for any dialogue, meaningful dialogue. There's nothing there. Now, the one thing that, to go back to, though, is that that time frame is not from the demolition permit. It's from when the provincial seed funding was granted. So the clock is already ticking. So, I mean, I welcome any dialogue that they may have with us, but not at the expense of pausing the project and possibly folding the project. That's.
Well, good. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Knight. After not saying you would speak, you spoke quite a bit here and had some questions.
And here's your resource.
So thank you for coming. We have a resolution.
That the delegation from Michael Knight, 50 Center Street, be received for information.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Barber and Councillor Rahi. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We will now go to item 7.4, I think. Director of Financial Services, the Treasurer, Reserve Funds. We have a resolution.
That report Finance 19-25 entitled Reserve Funding Adjustments for the EECC and Parks Reserve be received for information, and that council direct the Director of Financial Services to move funds from the Asset Management Fund to the EECC Reserves and Parks Reserve to fund the remaining projects for 2025.
Mover and seconder, Councillor DeRosier and Councillor Barber. Who's doing that one? Yeah. I think Treasurer, yes, sorry, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report has been delayed just because we finally got the TPA for the CSIR fund. So I wanted to wait to see the determination of the clauses in that TPA before we requested to move grant funds from asset management. So prior to the end of last year, we requested a potential of $950,000 to fund the EECC projects. We're happy to say that it's now reduced to $500,000 because of this grant funding announcement, and also because of the fact that we got decent tender results on the roof and the parking lot. So basically, this is just a funding between reserves. There's no impact to the levy. We're suggesting to finalize the amount at $500,000 for EECC and $75,000 for parks. This will only fund these projects for the remainder of the year. Next year's next year's capital funding will also be funded from asset management, as I mentioned, but this is only to fund the remainder of the town's portion of those projects for this year.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from council? Okay, pretty straightforward. Thank you very much. All those in favor? As carried, thank you. 7.5, Deputy Clerk, dealing with user fees, a resolution.
And that report Clerk 30-25 respecting 2026 user fees be received for information, and that staff present the user fee bylaw at a future meeting of council for adoption.
Mover and seconder, Councillor DeRosier, Deputy Mayor Barber. And I think Michelle is doing that one.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so we have before you a comprehensive review of the town's user fees for 2026. We are proposing some modest fee increases where necessary, and we are recommending that we transition to an annual review cycle so we can just avoid some of those large jumps over time and offer some predictability. Just as some background, the town does charge some user fees for a range of services. In recent years, there have been some amendments to the bylaw, but a full review of all the fees has been overdue. So I will just turn to the attachment and go through some of the proposed changes. We are not proposing to change all the fees. First up, we have a $10 increase to the marriage license for legislative services. So as previously mentioned this evening, the town does provide marriage license and civil ceremony services. And we are a unique provider that we don't require an appointment because we have several staff available to provide this service. The $10 increase just reflects increases in administrative costs since the fee was previously raised in 2021, and the town of Elmer still remains the lowest cost provider in the area. There are no other changes for the first schedule here. Just of note in the attachment, we are suggesting the removal of 2 items from the town branded materials. So town flags, just because we no longer really provide that service. If someone were super interested, it would have to be full cost recovery because it is a custom flag. And town maps we're suggesting to remove, we don't have them any longer. The next item is the zoning certificate. It is a larger increase, so just to give some information about why that is going from 65 to 100, which represents $35 in increase. The town of Elmer provides zoning information and building information when these kinds of requests come through from lawyers. Other municipalities, they separate the two out. So the two costs would amount roughly to the same that we are proposing. We do prefer to give all information to lawyers and realtors in a single request. Also of note, we are removing the administrative processing fee for complainants for closed meeting investigations, no longer applicable. We recently set the fines for parking, so we're not touching that. So Schedule C, Finance and Tax, we are recommending the removal of these 3 line items here regarding tax arrears and registration. So rather than setting a particular rate for tax registration, cancellation certificate, and tax sale, we are just going to put those all into one fee, and it's going to be full cost recovery. So previously, we were not charging the rate enough sufficient funds for that. So condensing it into one fee and having full cost recovery just makes sense for the process costs because it is dependent on what happens there. For Schedule D, building fees, we are not proposing any increases here. The staff have investigated a building permit fee study, but the estimates came back higher than were expected. It's not, the study's not required to adjust rates, but it is a good option to get accurate numbers, and it provides the rationale. As there has been a surplus in permit fees in recent years, staff are recommending no changes to this schedule at the time. Schedule E has to do with planning and development fees. These fees have historically been set at relatively low levels. We've done a comparison with some neighboring municipalities, and our rates do remain below average. So we are recommending increases to bring fees in line and to also cover staff time and administrative processing costs. It is important to note that these fees represent only a portion of the overall planning and development process, so applicants can incur costs at the county level, as well as other departments such as building for a permit. And the goal isn't to deter or discourage development, but just to ensure that the costs are proportional. There is one exception, the fee related to the review of agreements. It's proposed to increase more substantially. That is because it previously was not covering the legal fees that were required for registering development agreements. And one final note in the Schedule E is including a subdivision engineering review and inspection fee set at 1.5% of the total servicing cost for the subdivision. So this fee also helps to cover staff time for site visits, inspections, engineering reviews, all of those things that staff do to ensure that constructed services meet town standards. There are similar fees in other municipalities such as St. Thomas, and they are often at higher rates. Schedule F related to fire and emergency services fees. This was just recently adjusted in 2022, so staff are not proposing any changes. Rates are in line with comparator municipalities and adequately cover costs. Schedule G is to do with facility or recreation and facilities. I will just note there was a change this afternoon that I caught, a mistake that was that I had in there. The non-resident user fee for the pool should have referred to bylaw 38-24, which had swimming lesson enrollment classes at $50, private swimming lessons at $10, and public swimming at $5. As far as we're aware, discussions with the Township of Malahide are ongoing, so there is potential for change to non-resident user fees for the pool. Minimal changes for baseball. We are raising rates for daily tournaments per diamond, just a nominal increase from $35 to $45. And Parks and Recreation has submitted the request for some extra diamond dragging fees just to accommodate those requests as they come in, set at $50 plus HST. A large part of this schedule is the introduction of new fees for programming. So we have child and youth recreation programs. We also have adult and senior recreation programs and special events. So historically, recreation programs have not had established user fees. And since that is an identified goal of the municipality and we want to support the delivery of that kind of programming, it's important to have these fees. I will point out another item that was caught this afternoon. Just in the adult and senior recreation programs, we originally had it set as $5 plus HST. We want it to be $4.42 so that when we add the HST, we come to a flat rate of $5. That just helps, our cash handling and giving change back isn't a big deal when we have rounder numbers such as $5, $10, and $2. And just before moving on there, staff are planning to bring forward some advertising and commemorative opportunities. So fence advertising at the pool and ball diamonds and commemorative benches and trees. So we're hoping that will appear later this year before council, and then we can also include that in the finalized user fee bylaw. Schedule H has to do with our facilities and parks rental. We are recommending several updates specifically to our Old Town Hall user fees. So I will go there. These rates have not changed since 2012 significantly. So we are doing some changes to better align the fees with our operating costs. So it's still heavily subsidized by the town, but bookings are increasing and we're hoping that that will help to grow the facility revenue over time. These fees were brought forward to the Old Town Hall Advisory Committee, as well as our highest volume renter, the Elmer Performing Arts Council. And just as a note, these fees, if they should come into effect, it wouldn't impact the 2025-2026 performance season. Okay. Getting closer to the end, water services, we just have a couple of adjustments. As with the other departments, these increases are intended for cost recovery. So we just have some charges for after-hours services to reflect actual wages of staff. Additionally, we're recommending the removal of a construction water charge and temporary water supply fee, and that's because we will be replacing those with the bulk water service with the new water tower. And second to last, we would have the Schedule J, which would be the EECC fees. Those require approval from the East Elgin Community Complex Board and formal adoption, so we will defer that to the EECC Board. And the last schedule is other fees. Small changes, we've just included the composter. We have historically been selling those, so it was just missed. It remains to be seen if we'll continue to sell those based on popularity. The multi-residential waste collection application processing fee of $150 was inserted. It was previously approved by council. It just didn't make it into a new version of an amendment of the bylaw. And finally, we have the introduction of online credit card payments. So it's just full cost recovery of the transaction fee, which is set by the credit card companies. It can be between 2.5%, 3%, depending on the credit card. So this is per transaction. It is a percentage of the total transaction. Customers can certainly choose to pay other ways, cash, check, debit, which are other methods that don't incur transaction fees. So to wrap it all up, we are recommending that council review and provide direction on these user fees. Pending approval, a finalized bylaw will be presented at a future meeting, and we would give public notice in advance so that any members of the public could comment on these proposed changes. We expect that to come before council later this year. Okay, if there are any questions, we can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Michelle. You mentioned it was comprehensive, kind of like exhaustive or
Sorry.
gargantuan or, you know, a real biggie, as a person to the south would say. Anyway, are there any questions? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you. Two quick questions, Michelle. Marriages, I think are over 100. Is that about right?
For licenses, we have issued, I believe, about 150 licenses this year. For civil ceremonies, we're at about, I think, just about 40 that Chelsea has performed in 2025.
Okay. And secondly, you said town maps are being discontinued. Elmer Street Guide used to be in an Elgin County one, including St. Thomas. Is that still available? Do you know?
The resources that I have received from the county didn't have street maps for the town of Elmer. We do have one that we do just give out for free. It's just a piece of nice paper that has the trails and the streets on it. It's not an official map, but it does help people get around. I think when we get these trails developed and mapped, that might be an opportunity to do an updated town map and trail map. So we're kind of just waiting for those pieces to come together.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor J. Rosie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following up on that comment regarding the mapping that we're excluding now. I feel like Elmer's come a long way with our digital presence that we have on our socials, on our website, and our new platform we just have. Is there any way of digitizing the map and providing it electronically with a QR code? So if people come in, they could have that as an option?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor DesRosiers, yes, we do have a digital copy on the website of it, but we could certainly enhance it. I mean, we have great people on the team that could do something like that, so certainly.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution, that is carried. Thank you. And is there any new business in matters of urgency? I guess the notice of motion is under that heading, so Councilor DesRosiers has a notice of motion that's been revised, I think, so you're reading that? Right. Yep.
Whereas Elmer adopted bylaw 35-21 in 2021 respecting the permitting, regulating, and governing of special events on public and private property, and whereas the town of Elmer has hosted several new community events over the last summer, providing opportunities for community engagement, local business promotion, and increased civic pride regulated under bylaw 35-21. And whereas community events contribute to the social cohesion foster a sense of belonging, support local businesses, and enhance overall quality of life for residents. And whereas feedback for these events has highlighted both success and areas for improvement, including coordination, logistics, volunteer management, safety considerations, and communications with residents. And whereas a standardized framework for planning and executing community events can improve efficiency, ensure consistency, and establish clear expectations for organizers and volunteers and staff, therefore be it resolved that that staff be directed to prepare a report for community events in the town of Elmer incorporating lessons learned and feedback from recent events. The report should include, but not be limited to, event planning and approval process, roles and responsibilities for staff, volunteers and external organizers, health and safety, accessibility guidelines, guidelines for marketing and communications, budgeting and financial oversight, post-event evaluation and feedback mechanisms, necessary amendments to the special events bylaw, and the need for a policy or public guide to support the special events bylaw. And it therefore resolved that the report be presented to council for review and approval of any special events bylaw amendments prior to its implementation to ensure alignment with the town's strategic goals and community values.
Okay, thank you. The motion would be moved by Councillor DeRosa, of course. I have a seconder. Councillor Rahi. Just a brief comment. We've had two very successful festivals this year, incredibly attended. So this is a very timely kind of request. And although we do have a bylaw, it needs some changing and some tweaking, and that's what this is basically about. So, Councillor DeRosa, do you want to start off the top?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So first, I would like to thank our clerk for supporting the motion with the friendly recommendations to amend it, while still recognizing the intent behind that. So thank you very much, Owen. Just to piggyback on what you just said, Mr. Mayor, I believe we've had a very successful year of community events, and I'm optimistic that more will follow in the future. So, from experience myself organizing an event, staff have been very supportive of facilitating those initiatives. But I do see it as an area for continued growth for Elmer. So I believe reviewing our policies and our processes will be an important step in supporting that growth and ensuring future success for all events. So thank you very much.
Council, anything? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you. I'm glad that Councillor DeRosa has accepted the revision of her original notice of motion. It was my opinion that as it was drafted initially would be very onerous and not necessarily advantageous to the town, too cumbersome. We've had, as was mentioned, two very successful events that have happened this year based on volunteer input. And we don't want to lose that momentum. And the recommendations that are basically outlined in red were brought forward by members of council to staff with the potential to incorporate it into a revision basically of the special events bylaw. And on this particular context, I would now support that motion.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor DeRosa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to respond to that comment, like I said, it's hard for me because right now I'm sitting with a council hat on, but, as I said, I was instrumental in organizing one of those events this year. So this event was crafted, it's just to be clear, not to make it more cumbersome for volunteers. It was to actually make it more streamlined for volunteers, so that way it would be easier to put these events on and hopefully encourage more to come forward as a result. So just to be clear, it definitely was not intended to make it more difficult for volunteers. It was to streamline. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Reading of bylaws, resolutions.
The council gives three readings to and approves bylaw 60-25, being a bylaw to appoint Michael Maillard as the Integrity Commissioner for the Corporation of the Township of, the Corporation of the Town of Elmer pursuant to Section 9, 10, 11, and 223.3 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and bylaw 61-25 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at the regular council meeting held on September 17th, 2025.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Barber and Deputy Mayor Barber. Any comments by council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Are there any inquiries by members? Councillor Oslach.
Mr. Mayor, to Andy, I'm requiring about the vacant lot on Talbot Street East, where the fire was 2 years ago. Any progress so far?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I can reach out again to the property owners. I reached out to them, I believe, this spring, and they did indicate that they intended to redevelop the site, but they didn't have a timeline for it, and I don't believe they've been in any contact with planning staff yet. Heather's shaking her head no. So, yeah, they haven't advanced anything, but every time I've talked to them, they've said that they do intend to. We just don't have anything coming forward yet. But I can follow up with them again and get back to council.
To follow up, the insurance that he came through?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I believe that was one of the issues for their preliminary delay, was that they were having discussions with the insurance company on finalizing the outcome. The last time I talked to them, I believe that had been settled, and they were just considering how to get somebody to develop it. They did say that they had substantial investors, though, and were intending to develop it.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the recent town hall, it was mentioned about the challenges brought on by the shortage of doctors in the area. You've been involved in the recruitment process per se for a while. Is there anything that the town can do to enhance that project?
Thank you very much for that really easy question. We get a lot of questions about town involvement with doctor recruitment. There's a lot of organizations that are actually involved with doctor recruitment. The East Elgin Family Health Team, for one, the director is very much involved with recruitment. There is a county committee called the Health Recruitment Partnership, which recruits doctors, and they've been very successful. If you take a look at the number of doctors that have come to Elgin County, unfortunately, not many of them have come to Elmer. You know, we have had Dr. Ryu recently coming to Elmer as a replacement for Dr. Toth. What can the town do? Well, you know, it's not part of the town mandate to kind of recruit for doctors, but we do wish to serve our citizens as well as we can. One of the things we can do, and I'm in the process of doing that, is asking the director of the East Elgin Family Health Team, where most of the doctors would go, is what kinds of things, what kind of reasons are there for doctors to leave? Now, that was one of the questions at the town hall as well. I can't very well go and talk to the doctors directly because they're not here any longer. And basically, part of the reasons that doctors leave might be very personal and confidential, so it's a difficult process to go through. But nevertheless, I will try to talk to the director of the Family Health Team to find out if there's something there that the town can help with. You know, developers sometimes offer free rent or partial free rent for doctors to come to this community, and you know, we don't have any specific recommendations from our specific proposals from any of the developers at this point, but that's one thing that we can mention in conversations with developers. The other thing that may be the town can do, and I think we've been doing it over years, is make this a place that is appealing to doctors to be at, to have services that doctors want, to have services that doctors' families want, and that's part of the whole process of being a progressive community. One of the things I'm thinking of, just kind of at the top of my head, was that we could have a doctor's reception by the town, just so that the councillors and the public, for that matter, can come here, for example, and meet the doctors and talk to the doctors. That's difficult to do, of course, because doctors have schedules that don't meet ours, but, you don't do anything unless you try. So I think a reception would be a good idea to do that kind of thing. Other than that, I don't want to belabor the point too much, but one of the out-of-the-box thinking, which I hate that term, one of the progressive thinkings about doctors is that municipalities become the employers of doctors, and I see the treasurer shaking her head already. But it's happening in places in Canada, so that doctors could, participate in OMERS and become actual employees. I don't know if we want to go there, but these are the kinds of things that will be thrown around. When the health hits the fan, I think the main thing is that we have to be a community that welcomes doctors and a community that provides the services for them. Answer your question?
Good start, thank you.
Anything else? Councillor DeRosier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up from that discussion point there, you mentioned having conversations with the doctors as to why they're leaving. Would a component of that discussion perhaps be seeking guidance or clarification as to what those services are that they are looking for? Like, so consulting with maybe med school students and seeing what resources and what services are they looking for so we can attract them like a trap.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent point. Actually, in the recruitment process, those are the kinds of things that we do ask doctors about what they want. So thank you. Anything else? Okay. Any other statements? Deputy Mayor Barber?
Thank you. I have two, Your Worship. One of them is from Andrew Henry, the Director of Regional Water, and on behalf of the board, I'd like to bring this information to the people of Elmer because it just broke this afternoon. This email is to provide you notice that the Elgin Area Water Supply System has issued it's in a color that's hard to read, seasonal water quality advisory related to the possibility of taste and odors being detected in the drinking water supply to area communities. Taste and odors are typically caused by naturally occurring organic compounds, algae, and seasonal storm-related conditions in the lake water, being Lake Erie. Taste and odors in water are harmless and have no impact to the quality of the drinking water from a health perspective. However, from an aesthetic perspective, taste and odors can be unpleasant to consumers. Operations staff at the water treatment plant monitor for taste and odors closely and follow these events. The plant increases the dosage of powder-activated carbon to combat the issue. And a second one that was mentioned at the town hall meeting. Menno Lodge, up until a few years ago, was supporting as a community service a bus that transported area residents to a grocery store for their weekly or bi-weekly shopping experience. I've reached out to Menno Lodge and to a supplier of transportation, and I'm taking that thought process to an applicable or to business to see if they're willing to reinstate that service. It's provided at no charge to the residents and would transport them to the facility to do their weekly shopping. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other statements? I have no report now. Notice of motion. Councillor DeRosier, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas commemorative crosswalks can serve as a visible and meaningful way to recognize and celebrate important community events, cultural heritage, local history, and causes of significance. And whereas several municipalities across Ontario have implemented commemorative crosswalks as inclusive and engaging public art initiatives. And whereas a formal policy would provide clear criteria, application processes, design standards, and maintenance responsibilities for such installations. Therefore, be it resolved that Council directs staff to develop a commemorative crosswalk policy that outlines the purpose and guideline principles of commemorative crosswalks, eligibility criteria for individuals, organizations, or events to be commemorated, application and approval processes, including public consultation where appropriate, design, safety, accessibility, and technical standards in accordance with transportation regulations, roles and responsibilities for installation, funding, and ongoing maintenance, a mechanism for review and potential renewal, relocation, or removal of crosswalks. Be it further resolved that this draft policy be presented to Council for review and approval prior to its implementation to ensure alignment with the town's strategic goals and community values.
Thank you, and you wish that to be brought forward at the next meeting? Thank you. Any others? Notices of motion? Meeting close to the public, resolution.
That council moves into a meeting close to the public at 8:08 PM to discuss the following matters. Director of Legislative Services, clerk report, clerk 31-25, follow-up on an HR-related matter. Chief Administrative Officer report, CAO 40-25, update on an HR-related matter. And that consideration of these items is closed to the public pursuant to Section 239, 2B and D of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matters pertain to personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal or board employees, and D, labor relations or employee negotiations.
Mover and seconder, Councilor DeRosier and Deputy Mayor Barber. All those in favor? Carried. Be a brief recess. Welcome back. We have a couple of resolutions from closed session.
That council rise from the meeting closed to the public at 8:28 PM and reports the following. That council received for information and provided confidential direction to staff regarding Director of Legislative Services and Clerk, report Clerk 31-25, follow-up on an HR-related matter, and Chief Administrative Officer, report CAO 40-25, regarding an updated HR-related matter.
Mover and seconder, Councilor DeRosier and Councilor Barber. All those in favor? It's carried. Adjournment.
The council do now adjourn at 8:28 PM.
Mover and seconder, Councilor DeRosier, Councilor Oslach. All in favor and carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.